All right, where have we gotten so far? Well, we've been struggling with these rules, which have a lot of things that are hard to believe. There certainly are innovative attempts here, but and those may be the root cause of what's hard to believe. But on the other hand, I suspect that there's mainly just, it's still riddled with mistakes, even when you come to the living rules. Just not a lot of people have played this, I guess, post publication, as it were. But certainly the type of playtesting seems insufficient and a whole bunch else. What have we gotten in play so far? Okay, so the Muslims have grabbed most of Egypt, Damietta, Alexandria. Those are the important two. Rosetta, I mean, it doesn't really do me anything to attack it, and it'll probably get absorbed into an army all the way out here in Asia Minor without any transfer, without any need for boats or anything, because that's just allowed in the system. Again, one of those things that like just feels ridiculous. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not so sure that the big thing that hung me up, and I asked a question on, I haven't checked to see if I got an answer yet. I doubt it, because it's not been a long time. You know, figure it'll take at least 12 hours to have any chance. And, you know, that all depends on how often designer, developer, or other people are logging in. But anyway, what we had was a Byzantine army that landed navally here, had no problem withdrawing after an attrition result, which only hurt the attacking force, which was the Muslims in this case. Yeah, I know, the Byzantines were down here, but the Muslims were attacking to try to get rid of their army. Other than that, we've got a little bit of advances that the Muslims have made. The army swung down and swung back up. The Byzantines will be able to build their army back up, but it's a pain in the ass to build an army. Not in terms of like, oh, it's hard in the game, you know, like the game tries to make it difficult to collect the resources or whatever. No, it's because you spread your army all over the place, and then you have to hunt it down through these upside down counters. It's just a bad mechanism in terms of clumsiness and everything. I don't know what the answer is. I almost feel like it would make the most sense to have it all on paper instead of on a board. You know, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I got the garrisons in these towns, I just write that all down, or something like that. One of the real, or on a card or something, you know, a piece of card stock. But yeah, it's definitely mechanically a painful game because of certain aspects of it. The huge stacks don't help either. Yeah, you have holding boxes, but they're only for your expeditions. There's good reason for having a huge fucking stack. There's a reason that's there. I'm not so sure about the ones that I had early in the game, but they did make it easier to collect up the forces that I needed, just in terms of like knowing where they'd be. Yeah, I guess we'll start this third turn, but I'm not in the mood to do it. It will be interesting to see if what kind of answer I get there. Yeah, battery didn't charge. It was a pretty day, still is. I mean, but it's going to start raining soon. I did the big task of unattaching my hose. It actually needed a wrench, which had me worried. And also in my life, yesterday, I grabbed mail and I got some stuff I need, but I also got fucking scam this home warranty thing. Apparently it's a big deal right now. I'm not used to scams, outright scams coming through normal mail. It was kind of funny. It was like, you know, and mentioned my bank and this, that, and the other. Probably public information. At first I thought, it's information the bank is selling, but I'm not convinced of that anymore. But, it gave me a little scare at first. I thought, well, maybe my insurance was gone. But the bank would contact me directly about that in a different sort of way. I mean, I'm just like, that's not a home warranty. And I look a little further. But it's just such bullshit. Very deceptive at the very least. And I'm sure they're sending them out all over the area. But it's just something to keep an eye on. Don't call something that's, on a letter that you're not sure of or whatever. I didn't, but yeah. All right. So here we are starting another turn. We're going to try to pull back a little bit because otherwise we'll just have me grousing all the time. Let's check an events table thing. We get an 8. We haven't had an 8. That is going to be a purge. After snuffing out a conspiracy in Constantinople, soldiers of the Obsequium begin to denounce certain officers and nobles and offer to help Constans purge his officer corps. Byzantine player rolls a d6 and divides the result by 2, rounding down. This is how many non-imperial, i.e. not him and his wife, leader counters, which must be destroyed. They're not going to come back. This could be painful. I think I could get rid of this fucker, but he serves a purpose by keeping them loyal, I think. Oh boy, I gotta lose 3. That's not good. Like, that may be everyone. The entire Byzantine leadership. Now, 1 was a bonus on attrition. That could be nice, I guess. But actually it's not. It's a -3 on attrition rolls. If we look at campaign attrition, a -3 is horrible. Wow. Again, I feel like something's wrong. Like, you would never use that leader if you could help it. Like you'd replace him with Constans or something. But yeah, I've lost all 3 of my leaders. The loyalty bonus in Armenia, I guess, I don't know. We'll see when the event goes. My 1 field battle bonus, and then this guy who, again, by a strict reading, appears to be horrible. I think I'll put another question on that. If I'm putting questions down, I might as well start doing them for everything. The rain hath come. During replacements, everybody got all their damaged stuff that they could get back. Not the leaders, obviously, on the board. This is becoming even more problematic for the Byzantines because, I'm mixing different commands up into different places. At least at the beginning of the game, I knew where to look for. If I want this army and that army, I knew where to find them. Now, it's beginning to come to I gotta paw through all kinds of stuff. At least Egypt's gone. But yeah, I mean, the Obsequium and Orientales, and then the garrison, the per nation garrison stuff, which I think is recoverable. If it's not, I'll have to get rid of them. Replacements is 2.3. Yeah. The Byzantine player say. Yeah, so the only thing is, the Syrians are the only thing that can be replaced by the Muslims. As far as I can tell, everything can be replaced by the Byzantines, including those units that were fixed garrisons for given cities. Now, there's nothing that prevents you from moving them around anyway, so yeah, whatever, but they are getting mixed in with these regular forces. Anyway, it's going to put me to the fleets. I don't think anything's changed from the fleets. And now it's mode time. And I may want to reform this force and see where I can build it as an expedition, because I'm not sure of the rules, whether I have to build this coming out of Fustat or if I can build it coming out of Damascus, in which case I'll have a 2-pronged army shooting up into the Byzantine territories. Because there's no location in Kufa where you're allowed to build more forces. And so I got the feeling that it's probably allowed that I can rebuild the Egyptian army up there. And if I want a Byzantine field army, I've got to deploy it now. Or I can throw my cav forward and just kind of say, okay, that's good enough. I, again, don't have an answer to either of my questions. I kind of expect I'll be mostly done with the game by the time I get any, but, you know, whatever. It's actually particularly annoying here. Most of the game is pretty lightweight. It doesn't feel like there's a whole hell of a lot in terms of, you know, big strategy or anything like that that you can really undertake. You might get lucky with your navies, be able, you know, to push into Constantinople early or whatever. I don't know if it's early. It's just a matter of at all. Oh, actually, no. I took Damietta. I got to reapportion the fleets. There'll be less Byzantine fleets and more Muslim fleets. And that's going to put me in a position where, yeah, I might want to... I can't pull my leader, as far as I know, out of my expedition, which sucks. But if I have a Syrian expedition, I think all this has to be there. But I am in a coastal hex, I guess. It's kind of a little hard to tell. This is the hex I'm in. The two hexes next to it are definitely coastal. It looks like it has some coastline before it hits the river, so I'm going to call it coastal, but yeah. You know, I mean, is that any different? I don't know. Not this hex, because it doesn't have coastal, but you can see things where that kind of situation would exist, where it's obvious that it's a coastal hex. Oh, I know where. This hex is obviously a coastal hex here. Sorry. This one next to Antioch. And these two, you know, kind of cut that off. So yeah, I'm going to say that has some coastline in it. And then this one would also have coastline in it, this little notch. Again, it's not going to make much difference, but I was kind of counting on it being coastal, which is why I went to where I did, even though it's not a port. But yeah, I'm going to have enough boats to do something. Now, it doesn't help to just move boats. Anyway, let's reapportion that, and I don't remember what I was trying to say. I mean, I could just disband this and set it up somewhere else as well. But now, the tricky part of all of this is I kind of want to get the boats to exactly where my army is going to be, but sea movement happens before land movement. Now, again, the way I understand it, I can move my boats and shift them into place and whatnot. I just don't think I'll have enough movement to get here, pick those up, and get to Constantinople on this turn. As far as I could see, 10 movement points of Damascus, I can build the Egyptian army up there. That's right interesting. And if I can set things up reasonably, I can destroy these fleets pretty easily. What does that do for me? Well, I don't know all that much, but if I take Constantia, I take 2 more fleets away from the Byzantines, and I just keep reducing their capacity to carry a lot of soldiers on boats, and it's the soldiers that do the fighting. Which, mixed view there, okay. Yes, there was there'd be a decent amount of boarding and arrow shooting and all that kind of stuff happening, where you could make an argument that, yeah, they would have a significant effect. Feels like the boats themselves should have some value, but it's like if you don't have the manpower for the boats, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's not believable that you would be necessarily stripping the naval the manpower from armies that you have on the board to, like, man the oars and stuff. That I don't accept. You'd be taking people who are seamen for that, or slaves or whatever. I don't know. I don't know the specifics at this point, as well as I do in earlier periods and later periods. But again, you probably wouldn't be somehow dragooning your regular soldiers to man the oars. And it's also a fairly small number in general. Like, the navies didn't tend to take up a huge quantity of manpower. They were expensive. And that's reasonably reflected by the ports and whatnot, not so much by the idea of depleting an army. But then again, the soldiers would be on board the boats for fighting purposes, and they would definitely significantly impact that. Although if you've ever played, Trireme or War Galley or one of those type of games, the boats themselves are important too. So the numerical amount of Navy that you put out could be a big deal, even if you were understaffed in terms of soldiers that were on board them for boarding and whatnot, because there's still the ramming aspects, I think, in this era. I assume so. Not positive. Anyway, I'm delaying game, essentially, as I try to figure out what the fuck I want to do in terms of setting up these expeditions. Like, well, I got to count my movement and stuff like that. So Constantia is not a bad target at this point to take a couple of boats away, take away some of his naval power, and put me in a close position if I can't get a strike right from Alexandria up to Constantinople. And if I can, I want to rebuild these ships. I don't want them built here. I want them built in Damietta, actually. I just put them there, but, like, yeah. So this fleet is 38 hexes to here. And then so the fleet can actually make it that far. I think the two fleets both go at 40. Maybe I'm mistaken. Nope, Muslims only go 30. Yeah. I vaguely almost remembered that, which is why I had to go check. Okay, so 30 hexes, that's not going to do it. So yeah, I think the Egyptian army is going to take a shot at Constantia, and I'll keep pushing forward with these. I might actually be able to ferry both expeditions up here next turn, which will be a very, very powerful stance to take against Constantinople. But, possibility that the Byzantine Navy might smack things out of the way. Sounds fair. Wow, this battery ran down fast. So, keeping that army there, disbanding this one, leaving a unit behind here in Damietta, leaving a unit in Alexandria. I have something like 19 units for the 10 ships that are there. Keeping these two ships there, I'll set them sail, if I so desire, to join up. Just, I don't know, I could build a bigger army of Egyptians there if need be, or more importantly, if I need a bigger fleet to transport this army wherever it's going to go. Now the Byzantines have the tough call. They know Constantinople's not reachable, but do I want to challenge with a naval force? And strangely enough, I think horses work just fine on fleets. They seem to, which is an interesting concept. I mean, again, you're not necessarily taking the horses with you, although you would be if you're transporting. But I may want these cav to form some sort of screen to prevent him from making too much headway. In particular, I do not want him getting here. That takes another 2 ships away from me. I think the Byzantines are seriously fucked, though. This came to an ugly realization, which is that, as far as I know, I'm trying to look for these fucking patrol units. These patrol units essentially doesn't matter how strong they are. I've been putting when I first set up, I put the ones that were strong in the rough terrain in the rough terrain. That doesn't actually make any sense. They're fine, when they're in a field expedition. Those are actually pretty good units comparatively when we're talking about putting forces in play on navies, because they use that second value on them. Yay, horses good on boats. So I got these things with like 1/4 strength. They're only good in the rough terrain. Now, it kind of makes sense because they're archers and whatnot, sure. But it does not make sense for me to utilize those in particular as blocking forces. Now, the strength of a 1/4 is about equivalent to a strength of a 2-point infantry, and I don't have a lot of those. So I'm trying to gather what I can, and I flipped up units that are in garrison that have decent strength as well that I can throw into play against. Now, the reason they're as good as a 2-point infantry is that the horses, I can only carry 2 horses per boat. I can carry 4 of those little infantry per boat. So it's like, yeah. But the big infantry take up a whole boat each. So they're a bad idea. It's just, I'm doing these weird, calculations to figure out what my navy is. It's going to start down here. This is within 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of Constantinople, so I can build my army there. And it's actually an interesting army because I can flexibly use it against the field army, but I need the naval battle. I need to win the naval battle, because then I'd be dispersing the Muslim fleets again, and that puts me in a good position where maybe I can run in here, capture a port. That didn't work too well. But if I capture a port, the worst comes to worst, maybe I lose a unit like I did. Well, it could come out worse. It could come out worse. But anyway, probably not, because I can cover the routing units with my cav forces. So I can it's just there's this weird thing where I can insert myself in the middle of the Muslim territory and I'm absolutely safe. As safe as I am anywhere else. All that, I have this interesting situation where the army, now this would be a picked unit, so it would take a whole ship. For 6 points, 4 regular infantry, 2 cav is going to be stronger, so probably not this unit. But I've got a fair number of these 2-2 Armenian units. Armenians don't sound like something you'd want to put on ships, but in this game they are. Everything face up that's kind of interesting for me to redeploy in one way or another. Maybe not everything, because there's double stacking here and stuff like that. First off, in Siege, the particular units don't matter. Quality units suck in Siege. Fuck them. 1-point units are just perfect. But I want to slow things down, so I want to hold cities with 1-point units, whatever. And now I have to make the judgment of the armies that I have on the board, which two provide me with the best forces for Navy. Now, I got this 3-3 here. That's a pretty good unit. 3 points for a quarter space. But the only other unit I have flipped over is this one. This, I think, is Armenian. I have trouble again with the color differentiation. It's actually these two that I have the most trouble with, but I think that's Armenian. It looks to me like I want to bring the Armenians. because they just have a ton of good units that are great at fighting in the mountainous region, right? Therefore, they'll be good on boats. But then the secondary is much, much harder. I got more of these, but some of them are cav, and that makes things tricky. Reading the rules as explicitly as possible, I would need 2 horsemen to fill a boat. I couldn't use a horseman and like 2 light infantry or 2 regular infantry pieces on the boat. I'm not sure which way I should go with that. Like, you know, it's unclear to me. And then when we actually fight, I have to assign the units to ships as well, because the ship that falls or whatever counts. There's some weirdness where in some places it feels like ground units are what die, and in some cases it's boats that die, and that, I don't know what the fuck's going on with that. That didn't get resolved either in any of the questions, and I'm getting sick of this aspect of the game so much. But yeah, so then the question comes down to, do I want a cav heavy force, or is this better? I think I want the Orientales in this, which then means, and as far as I know, I can reposition over water as well. Yeah. Well, I certainly can to the army. I'm not so sure, because those rules aren't in here. Those rules are down in the PDF, and I'm tired of running up and down to look every fucking thing up again. But I think I can redeploy this onto Asia Minor. But anything that's not in an expedition, I don't care how strong it is. So I might as well leave it in Constantinople as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it looks to me like I want to form a force of Orientales and Armenians as my army, which is not what I thought at first. I thought I would be using these Obsequium and Orientales. Not the case. And of course, they're all intermingled now, so it's like, yeah, I got to flip around and look all over the place, because I've moved some things. This was a nightmarishly new thing. I wasn't counting on the deployment of a force being anywhere near this painful. Should put this somewhere. Put it up there. Where I've pushed forces to try to cover and prevent this from gaining too much ground in particular, but also figuring out what'll go here. Now, I have 5 boats. If I have more than 5, I'm fucked. But I think I have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So I've got 4 cav, and that gives me 2 of those 5 boats. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 more units, which fills the other 3. Some of those units are 1-point units. I, could have put cav in, but cav are harder to replace if I lose stuff. So I've got the Emperor in charge. He's my only leader left anyway. I'm not sure I can actually legally put him there because he's supposed to replace a leader, and I've got no leaders left. I assume I can. Again, there's so much that, like, that's the kind of rules that I don't mind being, like, left inexplicit, but, like, wow. It just adds to the pile when there's so much that is problematic. It's like, yeah, well, God knows, because I can, like, land in the middle of here as per the rules as written. Again, I don't believe that's the case, but, I can build the Egyptian army up here if I so desire, and all kind of shit like that just feels wrong. It also feels wrong that I'm intermingling these military commands as much as I am, where, there's no sort of boundaries or anything like that, which feels like there should be at this point, that, these forces weren't that malleable. But anyway, I'm trying to cover what ports I have, and I don't know, I don't want Nicomedia to fall, right? This is kind of risky. It's possible he might make a run to go up here and get this. Certainly could. And then I'd have less production as well. But that takes some of the threat away, the threat of two armies landing and hitting Constantinople. I'm out of battery. I got to stop for now. Something else. If I count 10 hexes, this is just outside of 10 hexes here. Of course, I've got a siege underway, so I think I'll stay there. I don't know if it even makes sense to do so. But I could actually disband this force and rebuild it in the hex next to it. Because I have a pathway that I can travel up there that's not 10 hexes, 10 movement points. That's 10 movement points forward. And that'll, if I felt like this force was too weak, but I don't. I feel like it's strong enough to do what it wants to. But I could get a few more strength points moved up by just restarting the army. And what's important about that, actually, I want to do it. What's important about that is that I don't have to deal with the attrition table over here. So, spending a couple of movement points, essentially, from here to here in order to get that. And it also opens up an opportunity that I could start probably up here. It'd be starting about here and just make that run for that extra production city. All right, out of battery again. I'll think about that later. So I'm keeping the same army essentially for this expedition, the same forces, but I'm just pushing it back to here. That's 10 movement points away from Damascus. That allows me to avoid the attrition table, which just seems like a good idea. And that makes it easier. That'll put it on the Muslim sea phase. What the fuck was I going to do? I was going to go basically destroy the loose boats here and blockade the rest and just lock it in. And that actually will simply work. The answer that the Byzantines attempted of putting a force down there that would be on board the Navy, yeah, that doesn't actually work. And fuck it, because the Muslims get to move first. And I was just idiotic in placement of the Byzantines. I'm taking it as a mistake and living with it. There's 29 movement points to here. I can add these boats in there, which will cause me some issues. But I have a ground army, they do not. These are just destroyed. They'll come back, And now my ground force can land here. And I'm just leaving this like this. Because it's not the land movement phase. Now it has 1, 2, 3 movement points used against it. So, whatever its movement is, 40 minus however many it is what it can go. It can't do a hell of a lot, but I can at least, siege the city, honestly. And I'll take out the rest of the fleet there. There's no Byzantine fleet, so they're just fucked. And we drop down to the Byzantine patrol move. I think these things moved to where they were supposed to. Maybe I wasn't supposed to do it back in the mode adjustment. There's something weird where like garrison units can move around due to that. Maybe the cav can't. Fuck it, this is where the cav wanted to go. It would have had that movement. If we look at patrol mode, it's probably a 10 hex thing. And it's just, it's a 10 movement point thing. So it's essentially, this is what I would have done. And damn, but I need to be able to do it this way, because otherwise all this arrangement as to how much blockage I can put in the way, I'd have to all prefigure and then duplicate. And that's no fun. And it doesn't really change anything. The only thing that it might change is if there was a naval landing on one of these places. That seems so rare. I'm just going to move the Byzantine patrol move up into the mode adjustment and allow them to shift during that. And fuck it. It's just easier that way. Which puts me to the Muslim land move phase, where we have a shit ton of movement points here, I'm sure. I think there's like at least 20 movement points. I don't have anything else I can really do. So I am going to attack this. That unleashes these fleets and they're destroyed along with the unit. Goes in the destroyed box. And I can leave a garrison there. But that's going to give me, well, it's not going to give me anything because oh no, wait. I have a couple extra Muslim ships. Well, I don't know what happened. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's more Muslim ships than I thought there were. I got 12 here, which was the 10 that were down here that I counted on. The 2 from somewhere on the coast here. And now I've got 2 more that I can build now that I took Candia, which is sweet. Much worse than that, I've got a powerful Muslim army stacked with a fleet close enough that I think this game is essentially over. I would want to garrison Candia, but I'm counting on being able to hold it. My whole fleet's there. I can garrison a couple of ships. That would make sense. But yeah, the ground unit, I'm not going to use as a garrison because I have the naval power now fairly strongly, which to me means that I will be able to prevent that from falling at any important time. I can get my whole launch into Europe before then. That puts me on these guys. I think I had 16 here, which means 24 points of movement there, and we'll advance. I spent some movement, I guess 4 movement points to get here, and then I rolled. I rolled for the assault, didn't get it, so I went in with the siege, spent 7 movement points. I can keep going. I can move into here. And now we do the patrol thingy, which we have not seen before. So we lose 2d6 worth of movement points, which is 10. So we're down to 3. That was a half plus 10. 1, 2 more. I've got 1 movement point left, but I managed to destroy the cav. It goes up here. And this is not a city, so I can't hold it. My 1 movement point left. I'll move to here and encamp. Not much for the Byzantines to do. They can try to engage a fight here, or they can build a field army in Constantinople next turn and hope for the best. And that's really all they got. Because from here, we're looking at what? I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Okay, they're not able. First of all, they're not able to bring both armies into place, but also their slower fleets aren't even able to get them to Europe. I've got to make a stopping point. Now, there's useful stopping points. I think Smyrna is the most likely, or maybe Rhodes or something. The Byzantines do not have a shit ton of cav. I'm going to look at their force size. I've got a pretty good idea of what the Muslim force size is and try to make a decision of whether I want to engage in a fight against the Syrian army. The answer to that is no. I am going to disperse my army to wherever it wants to go. Now, when it disperses, here, unlike when you're out, I have to be within 10 movement points of the army hex, or the expedition, or whatever. Which is, again, why I think that the route rules are just wrong. I think when an army disperses due to route, it should be limited to nothing that's more liberal than when it disperses just because it wants to. Of course, I'll have a fair amount of capability to shift things wherever I want, or to build a new army in Constantinople that could suck everything in, or whatever. That's perfectly legitimate. But things look really, really bad. All right, I'll handle that disbursement. I'll put this on the charger because the battery's almost dead. And there's nothing there that seems to allow you to cross water like there would be during the whatever it is, the mode phase or whatever. So we go to 649. Put this here. What are these numbers here? 24, 25, 26. Oh, yeah. After Muhammad. Okay, fair enough. It's not after Muhammad. It's after his movement to Medina or whatever. But apparently that's what the dates are based on under Islam. Yeah, it looks pretty bad for the Byzantines. But again, I'm actually not, I think the Byzantines are going to have a hard time in general in this game, simply because Egypt is going to fall. There's nothing they can do about that. They probably can't keep the Muslims from advancing into Antioch, Antioch's not really the big issue here, but into the ports along here. They can slow them, but I don't feel like they can completely stop them. And as ports begin to fall, Candia becomes relatively easy to take. Eventually, you're going to have a Muslim navy that's big enough and close enough that it can make the landing. Next turn's not going to be it, but we shall see. So back here with Apocalypse. In the east, we have the random events in the fourth turn. 8, we just had that. That means, this is interesting. It says officers in the obsequium, but it appears to affect all the officers. I'm just curious whether I screwed up. Because I lost the Armenian leader, for example, from this. Anyway, we'll leave it as it is. We'll see whether there's any effect to that. I'm suspecting that the loyalty thing won't come into play, which means Armenia's a problem. So yeah, no event this time. And replacements, we got a fair amount. We should be getting them all back because we still have 3. And these are all, this one costs 1, but then the other 2, even if my die rolls are 1 each, I'll get them. Right? I think so. All right. Teams are up to a total of 4 fleets. This is weird because I was at 5 before. I don't know if I miscounted or something. Doesn't really matter. They lost them all wherever they were. the Muslims got a couple more ships because they took Candia. No, Constantia. Sorry. And that means it's the complicated mode time. Do not want to move. This is not the army marker, is it? Looks like it is. Expedition. Yeah, the blue is confusing there, but I guess this has the white in the same place, so I don't know why. But anyway, we got 2 in encampments, but I got to figure out the Byzantines because they're going to have to gather up an expedition. And I can do the quick count. We already decided this can't make it all the way to Constantinople, which means I can put a field army somewhere to try to contest things. And we're going to gather up the cav, and it's going to be a complicated and painful procedure. This is the most painful thing. Now, for the Muslims, it's not that big a deal. But for the Byzantines, because their forces are all over, because they can put 2 armies together, blah, blah, blah. I don't know that I want Constans with me, but he's my only leader. He just has no capability on land. Of everything in the game, this is probably the most painful thing. And it really sucks up like effort and intensity on a game that, as I've said before, is for the most part pretty light, you know? Being so fatigued with it, I just kind of threw what I could find into there. I think I've got like 8 movement points, which isn't a bad amount. And we'll see if that can help me out. Worst comes to worst, I can dismantle my army and then move it back to Constantinople for next turn for the big fight, if that's going to happen. Attrition checks on both my Muslim armies, because, and this is painful, this was something I was able to avoid last time. I got to add up all the factors in here. Although I'm not sure I really have to. I know this is like, you know, above the 30 or whatever, right? Yeah, that's going to be above 30 factors. And I'm pretty sure the Egyptian army is as well. But theoretically, I should be adding them all up. I just happen to know these armies are big enough that it doesn't make a difference. And I am going to take attrition here because, again, I'd have to fling back to, say, here in order with the Syrian army, which still might not be bad. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 movement points to get to where I am. And I could just rebuild it. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to there. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of units I lose, and there's not really much. I mean, clearing the enemy out of the way is the big deal, really. And honestly, falling back to here, I'd be able to head up this way instead of that way. However, that would take away my capacity to pick things up off the coast if I need to. So, gosh. I mean, if I can make my way to here, that's a big benefit. So I'm going to stay where I am and make the rolls. Big rolls, which meant that I don't lose much. Luckily, I don't have a minus anything on. There's 2 in field battles. He's nice. He might be the guy I want hitting up there. I can't combine the expeditions. So there's that. And that's going to put me to the Muslim Sea move. I'm going to break here because, again, all of this is just, the Byzantine restructuring, their modes move, is just so painful. Even though I kind of gave up on it. So, got a couple of replies to two of the questions. What I consider some of the more ridiculous ones. One was the Manuel leader, who they were the two recent questions. One was the Manuel leader, who's just a penalty, one that's not well described in the rules anyhow, and the other one is the after a route you can basically run as far as you like. However, not from either the designer or the developer, but from the magazine publisher. I'm going to take them as jokes. It's the only way. It's the only way to look at them. The Manuel one, he kind of responded to my solution was to make sure he dies fast. Because there's no penalty to that or whatever. But again, I don't think that he's supposed to be a penalty leader. I think he's supposed to give an advantage, because he's totally useless with that advantage in Alexandria itself, if it were. But anyway, and totally unimportant about it. If it's a penalty, you just get him killed then. The second one was the routing situation, where it's like you retreat more than 10 hexes instead of the normal disbandment of 10. Now, the publisher showed, that he either looked up in the rules or had some knowledge of the game still, because he made the comment of, well, since you could, maybe I included it in the question, I'm not sure, but it was something along the lines of, well, since normal formed units can disband within 10 hexes, it only makes sense that routing units would run further. And I'm yeah, okay. But I'm not taking that as anything official by any means. It's just a matter of, I don't know, wanting to have some fun or whatever. Anyway, I'm on the Muslim Sea move phase, where I have to figure out, I should be able to move my force with this thing. There are no control markers or anything, so I just have to remember that I've taken Cyprus. So a little under 30, I can get to Smyrna. That's the furthest I can get, I think, for movement allowance, but I can move the entire army there. That's got some 2 movement points off of it when I get to the ground movement phase. Byzantine naval movement. I'm looking for if they have a fleet. Yeah, this guy. They have a guy under there that I can't really use. I think that's about it. I don't have an army I can pick up. Might have some fleet here. Yeah, so I'd have maybe 3 ships. That could carry a fairly large amount of force, but not enough to do a damn thing. So we'll drop down to the patrol move. I could shift, this guy's on patrol. I guess I could shift some stuff, but I already did it, as I said before, up in the mode adjustment. That just worked easier. So now we're on the Muslim land move phase. I kind of want to see what this force does before I see anything else. Now, if I can get him, up here on the coast near Smyrna or whatever, I'm pretty golden, because then I have 2 waves of invading armies that can hit Constantinople. And again, supply doesn't mean anything, and oddly enough, being out of supply kind of gives you full options as to or being, far from your supply sources and whatnot. Gives you full options as to retreating during a rout. Hard to figure out what I want to do, but I've got like 28 movement points for this army. I'm not in a good location or anything. I moved up to here, but now there's a Byzantine army in my way. I mean, if I could destroy it, that would be helpful, but I don't believe that it's easy to wipe out the Byzantine armies. They can set things up so that they can kind of avoid that. I could move through here. I could clear that out of the way in sort of an attritional thing. I could actually slide up this way. However, an equally reasonable option might be to head up this way. I don't think in either case. Okay, so this route looks like it's clearer overall because 1, 2, 3 units, 1, 2, 3 stopping points. Towards getting right to the coast. And if I do wipe out the Byzantine army, that gives me an advantage for any invasion up here, because I'm probably going to be facing elements of that army when I do cross. So I guess I got to go this way. But I'm probably not going to gain any significant ground here. Fudging the rules here, allowing siege to take place after a failed assault roll. I don't think that's supposed to be allowed to happen, but I probably would just go with the siege roll then. Sort of like a, hey, do I have a quick chance? Can I bombard the walls and get rid of them? Because otherwise, the chances are just are too low. I mean, I guess you could do a lightning campaign or whatever, but the assault is a pretty iffy option anyway. So I made it here, paid 8 movement points to get in to this hex because of the die rolls, and now it would be 5 more to destroy this unit. Or I guess I could bypass it, but this isn't really clear. A Muslim expedition which enters as ZOC loses 2d6. I think I would also lose for each of these hexes, so I pretty much have to go in there and wipe that unit out. Now I'm sitting here with 7 remaining movement points, and again, faced with an option. I can... This was not in siege. I think I actually only have 6. I think I forgot to pay a movement point to move into this hex back here. You don't have to pay a movement point to move into the... an extra movement point to move into the patrol hex. Again, lots of weirdnesses everywhere. I could be the attacker against the Byzantines, try to force them into the battle, maybe take this hex, or I could cut some distance, maybe take this, and push me closer up there. I don't know which makes more sense. Kind of feel like I'd rather make the Byzantines be the attackers, since there's no zones of control or anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would put me here. I have 1 movement point left. The siege can't possibly succeed. However, an assault can. So we'll go for that. And we don't get it. So I'll encamp here, though, because I'm quite far up into Asia Minor. And then we handle this, which is pretty much trivial. And I could actually even push further forward, reduce the number of units. Without control markers, it's kind of a pain in the ass. So like I've got something like this. I got to remember the Muslims took that, right? Similarly here, I might just take hexes and not leave any kind of garrison there, because it's really not that important to me. Now, this space would be because it's got a fleet in it, so fuck it. And we succeeded in taking Smyrna. I left a garrison there. Captured Pergamum. Didn't leave a garrison there. don't feel like that's really necessary, and ended up laying siege to Abydos, not getting it. But I'm on the coast, so I can pick them up for a couple of movement points. Sure, it cost me more than just staying in Smyrna, but I'm running away from the Byzantines. I'm getting myself close enough, staying on the coast and whatnot. So pretty sweet as far as I'm concerned there. And that puts me then to the final thing, the Byzantine land move. These guys don't have as many movement points. I'll figure out. Like I'm in trouble here. I only have 7 movement points. My army is fairly big. That's not enough to get me here. I do think it's enough to get me here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. However, I don't know that I want to attack that. I think I want to preserve my forces to form the army up at Constantinople, where I can face the Egyptian forces. We just disband the Byzantine force. I had hopes that at least it would slow down the Muslims. Maybe it did. Maybe them heading up this way did, but I can't see making an attack with them. Disbanded mainly up around Nicomedia, but in the surrounding areas as well. That is going to get me to a new turn. All right. Battery didn't run off. Here we are, Thursday morning, relatively early. It's supposed to rain again today. Yesterday, I don't know, I could have gone at least a small shopping or something, but it's so hard to convince myself to go to the market of no choice. Milk is reasonably priced there. Eggs no longer are, and I don't really need eggs. Everything else is kind of high priced except some bulk items and veggies and stuff that are, I don't know. I think the main thing is I don't really know the prices of most veggies, but veggies are relatively cheap. So I know the prices of like frozen, and again, they don't carry a store brand, so it doesn't really work for me. That's probably the biggest factor in their prices, is that they carry the name brands and local, kind of artisan-y type stuff, but they don't have one of these big discount store brands, which mean everything's going to be higher, and then it's a little higher on top of that compared to the name brands. Anyway, here we are at the start of another turn. This may be the last turn of the game, because the Egyptian army is poised to make the attack on Constantinople. The Syrian army is cutting its way through Asia Minor. Let's make a quick roll for the event. See if I can remember what I've got. Sassanid collapse. Muslim victory in the east brings Habib B. Maslama with the Kufan army. This gives me Habib, the Kufan units, and the expedition on the east edge of the map in whatever mode the player wants. Okay. Eastern edge of the map, I think, means this. Makes the most sense. Means that, I don't know what it means. Right now, there's only one mode I can bring them in on in that way, right? They've got to be expedition. Because it says the Kufan expedition map, counter, but I'm assuming I don't build it 10 from Damascus, although that wouldn't be that terrible. But this only makes sense, the eastern edge of the map thing, if it's coming in as an expedition. Well, there's only one mode in expedition that they can be in, because, I guess it could be different if I had some of these towns already. I could deploy directly into them. But anyway, this is easy enough. It's not going to do much. It's going to be a diversion of effort and time. I was kind of wondering, before I rolled this, what the hell it really matters. Sure, I get more production by getting this. I start stripping away capabilities of the Byzantines in terms of replacement points and whatnot, but what does it really do? I'm also assuming they don't come in as encamped and thus taking an attrition roll or anything like that, because again, it's, things just aren't all that well explained in the game overall. Is this the kind of thing that really bugs me? No, it's just a pile on of that side of things. There are games that I really, really like. I'll point to Campaigns of Marlborough again. I really had a lot of fun with that. That is particularly lightly written, weak rules that leave a lot to the interpretation, and I'm cool with that. Here, though, I feel like some of the stuff is just doesn't work. Point out the color differentiation. This is not this color, and this is the thing with all the Muslim units. It would be a lot easier if it was that, if the color differentiation was what appeared here instead of what they actually got on the printings. On the other hand, I do find the dark on dark printing on these guys, on the counters with the gloss of the counters and whatnot, to be really problematic. Even on the page, they look kind of difficult. Looks like I'm running low on battery, so I'll build this army, on this road or something, and just say that's good. I need to replace the battery. Byzantines have 3 extra, still have 3 production. One of them is going to the cav. I rolled 2 dice for the others. I get a 3 or higher, so I get everything. And I just got to figure out where the fuck to put them, which isn't that big a deal. Fleet-wise, Muslims gained another fleet. That probably means the Byzantines are down, I think, to 3 instead of 4. But we have those 3 on the board, so nothing's going to happen there. Muslims, yes, they gained something, but they've gained all their fleets. So that puts me to the horrible mode adjustment. We're on turn 5. It's still the Muslims have to make their decisions first. Again, growing lazier and lazier. I just threw all my replacements into Constantinople. I don't have enough room left in Nicomedia, which I have filled up. And the only other place I could put them is here. And you might say, oh, you're facing an opposition there. Look, that's not going to do anything, right? If he manages to get his lucky siege roll, which is a 1 in 6, I think, for one of those. No, it's a 5 or 6. Okay, so a 1/3 chance. He'll trade troops, which maybe slows him down or not. But if I throw too many in there, he'll just take the actual siege. It's not like anything that's happening back here is all that important. The only important thing is for next turn, will the Byzantines have the replacement points from that? And the answer is going to be no matter what. And that puts me to the fucking mode adjustment, which don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. Don't want to do that. I kind of, again, taking the cheap route, grabbed all my cav and pretty much everything that's decent and put it in the Byzantine army here. I got a big stack of, a few units in Constantinople now. Have I been doing sieges wrong? I feel like I have. Yeah, I've been rolling 2d6 for towns, which is something that has kind of hindered the Muslim player. Towns are really easy to take. It might not be worth rolling the assault die. You got a chance of just spending a movement point or 2 to take a town. Fuck it, it's worth it, rather than losing units. I've been rolling 2d6 for towns. Constantinople is still only 2d6, even with its massive walls and this huge garrison in it and whatnot. Which just means, kind of I'm counting on the field army to to try to stop things. Although that massive, the garrison does end up making it harder. They have to match it unit for unit. So if the Egyptian army takes enough losses, and this is something the attrition results might cause, the Egyptian army takes enough losses, it might actually not be able to siege Constantinople. And that'll cause all kind of ugliness where I have to withdraw and rebuild my expedition and all kind of stuff like that. In terms of the expedition for the Byzantines, if that disbands, it's in trouble because it's over the water from almost everything. Conceivably, I could put a couple of units into Adrianople. Make sure I got the stacking right there. Yeah, 6. Okay. Thought it was less. But, yeah. Now, we haven't done many assaults, so there aren't many cities that have been burned or whatever. Like, there might be one somewhere, and I may have forgotten about it when I did it. But other than that, yeah, we're fine there. And that means that we are up to the Muslim sea move. I'm going to break here because this is just such an expensive part of it, but essentially what's going to happen is this fleet's going to come up, drop them off. That's it. I started the Muslim sea phase and moved my army over. I spent some 12 of my 30 movement points. Don't know quite what to do with the rest of them because I got to figure out where he's going to end up to be in the right patrol zone. Smyrna is not a bad place for me to go, although it can be taken, and that would force me out and back. But I realized I forgot the attrition phase, so I gotta hit the two units that were encamped. Egyptian killed, which is the important one. They're the guys attacking down there, and then but 3 of the Syrian army were destroyed. And that's a big deal. They're high-value units is all that I have left. But on the other hand, I don't know that I'm in, I'm not in any danger right now. It's just a matter of how far can I get? Can I get to a coast or something? I'm going to lose my whole navy, pretty much, if I go back to Smyrna. I can only port one thing there. I might as well just stay up here at Constantinople. Blockaded, I don't think there's any fleets in there, but the reason for that is it gives me an opportunity to withdraw from there if I need to retreat. You're allowed to, like, route with navies or something. I don't know. I have to look up the rules if it comes to it. I'm counting on winning the battle, but whatever. In terms of the Byzantine sea movement, what the hell? There's nothing to do. I have a couple of ships. What am I going to fucking do with that? My ground force is defending Constantinople. There's absolutely no value to that. What's weird is this kind of interjection of the patrol move. That doesn't really account because I don't have any cav anywhere. So it's time to get on with things. And I'm going to see if the Muslim army can win. Because if it takes the Egyptian army, if it takes Constantinople, I don't have to worry about this other stuff. It's game over. The first question is there any value to putting cav in reserve? That comes down to, I don't know what the strength points are going to be, but what I don't want happening is a defender retreat, or destroyed, obviously, because if that happens, then, or defender rout, then I will have to, let's see the specifics here. Move into friendly towns and cities that are at least 10 movement points away. And I don't believe boats can be used for that. Now, I'm trying to remember the retreat rules there. And where, like, there's a naval retreat. That's not in naval battles. I'm going to have to find that because there might be some value. No, because, yeah, there might have been some value to moving some naval units close by. They might allow something. So I've got to find that specific. And I don't know where it is. But in terms of these, feeding the battle, bad results, and I just get to throw them into attrition. Well, I can throw them into attrition anyway. Counterattack, if I got a bad result, that means, I mean, maybe we're at 1 to 2, but we're probably hitting something worse than 1 to 1, and we're expecting it to be worse than 1 to 1. I don't know the specifics of the size of the Egyptian army, but yeah, I'm going to be counterattacking with worse values, and then I lose my whole army. That's definitely out. And covering the route move, the problem here is that I've got nowhere to route to except Adrianopolis, which means, or into Constantinople, but I think it's full, which kind of means, yeah, I don't survive, you know? So I think the whole force gets thrown in. Let me see if I can find the naval retreat rules. They might have been only under siege or something like that. Yeah, so this is an all or nothing for the Muslims. And for the Byzantines, it's pretty fucking close to that. So we'll throw the whole force in. A reasonable argument that I should have just depopulated everything that I could and put it into this army. As it is, it's a 64 strength point army. That may be larger than the Muslim army, but if I withheld the cav, it probably wouldn't, but the counterattack might have been useful. I don't know. I don't think see, the thing with the counterattack is you have to have about half your army in cav, and I don't think I have that because I have a couple of those really heavy picked units, like the one with 13 strength points, the Optimates or whatever. Let's get them Egyptians. The integration of land and naval combat, it's almost impossible for a real naval combat to happen. The only way it happens is if you have your fleet gathered with your ground forces and the enemy decides to attack your fleet and ground forces with their fleet and ground forces. So like where we had this, where there was a big Byzantine fleet, it just disappeared. There was no ground forces, so it vaporized. That was a stupid place to be. I'm not sure why I had it there, but that's helped direct things. Okay, so the Muslims only have 52 strength points. That comes out to a 1 to 2, but their leader has 2 shifts in favor of him, so it goes up to 2 to 1. The Byzantines are stuck with the emperor. He's the only leader there. And he's only good at naval battles, I believe. Let me just double check, because he can bring it to 1 to 1. Yeah, he's only good at sea battle. So, I think he probably fought some land battles, but somehow or another, his one failure as a naval commander gives him a rank in this. So we go up to 2 to 1, and we see we get a defender route. Take a look at that. We're going to lose as many units as are in the Muslim expedition. That's going to eat up almost everything. And whatever's left has to flee to Adrianople. Or if I have some room, Constantinople, I'll certainly put things in. Only 2 big units were left. There was room for them in Constantinople, actually. I had like 9 units in Constantinople. So we fled back into the city with the emperor. No big deal. But now, what did we have? We had... I guess we should have counted this beforehand. We took no losses. So we had 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 units here, which means we have 24 movement points. That's enough that my 2 dice automatically captures Constantinople and it falls and the game is over. I guess I should get to the wrap on this. Okay. I'm struggling to figure out a way that the Byzantines can win this game. And none of it feels like it has to do with the holes in how I understand the rules of the game. Like the things that I feel aren't expressed particularly well and or you know, seem absolutely ludicrous in effect. Okay. Moving the Navy to Constantia was definitely a mistake. It should not have been there. I don't remember why it was there. It should have stayed under the guns of where I could bring the Byzantine army and therefore force a naval battle. And under those circumstances, it's possible that like an effective good naval battle could, there's one thing that could have affected this, which is that these guys the Muslims might not have had enough movement points to attack Constantinople if naval movement took away from land unit movement. And then I'd have to attempt an assault, which if it succeeded, if I breached the walls, I would still win because I have more units, therefore I could trade them off, and that would be done. Assuming I got the die roll, which is, what, a 1 in 6. That's Constantinople's big walls. Instead of 5 or 6, they're 1 in 6. They can't outlive a siege itself, but they can handle the assault a little bit better than everything else. That's the advantage of the big walls. Okay. The situation with the Constantia Navy, had I had that back here, I could have brought a Byzantine army into play against it and forced the Muslims to have to do a naval battle, and that would slow the whole process down. But the Muslims are going to get a bigger navy once they have Egypt. Their navy is just going to be bigger. They're going to be able to carry more troops on that navy. Not necessarily more strength points. Like I said, there's some big-ass Byzantine units. That 13-pointer isn't that big on navies. Yeah, so I feel like if we look at the naval stacking in fleet battles, well, we got to look at the naval stacking. Not in fleet battles, but over here. I think it's 2 per ship. Yeah, it's 2 Muslim per ship. Now, the Byzantine can put a lot of light units into play, but basically what it comes down to is they can put 4-foot units. In general, there are some exceptions, there are some better units, but in general, that's 4 points, which is about half of what the best Muslim units, the best of the Syrian army or the Egyptian army, the best units are able to get 4 per unit, which means they can put 8 per ship. So if you have a larger Muslim fleet, it's going to be more powerful probably, in general. Carrying 2 mounted units, yeah, that can be pretty good. That can match the Muslims. So we're looking at, it could be a close battle. It could get down to the 1-to-1 table, right? And the Egyptian leader doesn't have a naval leadership, whereas both the Syrian leaders, I believe, do. And the Byzantine emperor has one. So yeah, I think it could come down to one major naval battle, but I feel like the edge there is still going to lean towards the Muslims, although they might not be able to break the 1-to-1, and then it comes to a crapshoot there. What else is going to fit in? The problem with this is there's a lot of turns. Egypt falls relatively quickly. The Muslim navy shows up relatively quickly. I don't think any of these are gonna really destroy the ability of the Muslims to almost always be able to brush aside a Byzantine fleet, kill what's there, or just force it back and continue on and get itself in a location where it can come in and hit Constantinople itself and siege it. And once it does that, might be a 1 in 6 die roll for the assault, but eventually, like, that army is going to have enough movement points if it sits out there that it can get the 2 dice. It can get itself that 12 or more movement points. And in this case, I had 20 something movement points, right? With the fleet, with the army that my fleet could carry, that it's going to just win through a regular siege. And there's not much the Byzantines can do about that. Without a navy, they're not going to be able, like, that battle that I did on land, that wouldn't be available if I had fought a naval battle, right? Okay, let's take a look if any of these do anything. I mean, we have all this shit with, like, popes and putting people on the box, and this has to do with the African army coming into play. That's not really going to help. I don't know where it shows up. Just a bunch more troops. Now, are they particularly amazing troops? No, they'll help. They'll help. Oh wait, Event 6 has some decent forces. What's that? That's the Armenian defection. That's not going to help at all. We had the Purge. Sons of the Buchanator. Set fire to ships in the harbor. The Byzantine selects one Muslim port. All units in that port are destroyed and pillaged. Okay, that's a pretty nasty thing that could save you from the naval situation for at least one turn. Probably more than that, because the Muslims can only build a number of units equal to the factories that they have. So you could really kind of tie things up. This could end up being a 3 or 4 turn delay there. Sassanid collapse, that we had that. The storms at sea, we already know how bad those are. What would naval fire, what would Greek fire do for us? Greek fire lets us sink a number of navies early. If we'd gotten that, that would have helped. So yeah, I feel like maybe the issue is that if you get the right sequence of random events, the Byzantines might be able to hold out. But the game doesn't have a whole lot going on it. Like, you have to get that right sequence of events, and then I think it's close enough that, like, the factories and all that start becoming a real important issue in the game, where Byzantine production being higher or whatever on a per city basis gives them an edge over what the Muslims can do. And that if you don't get lucky with the particular, and Greek fire is not likely, you know, it's 1 out of 36. We have, what, 11 turns. 11 shots at 1 out of 36. And it only counts if you do it once. So, you know, we're looking at less than a third easily of the games are going to give you that Greek fire, which could be a major thing. Again, that one event could wipe out the Muslim force at a key time when it's going to take them a lot of work to rebuild it. Some storms at sea, which happen only on 11. That's 3 out of 36. We got one of them, but, you know, how likely are they? You can't count on them. And I don't see anything else that really does it. So what the one that would have is this one, which is a 9. You know, it's fairly likely to happen over the course of the game. But it has to happen at the right time, like not sometime after I'm able to actually land the troops. It has to happen when I've got the forces en route, really. You know, and en route might mean a couple of things. So if you're talking about moving the Egyptians from Alexandria, we could get them to Italia. That takes one turn. And what we saw was, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, we're on Constantinople. So it's basically like I had a 2-turn trip, one way or another. Actually, I think I took 3 because I took Constantia first because I wanted to wipe out their navy. But it could be just a 2-turn trip to get the forces up to Constantinople. And I mean, it's going to be damn hard to hurt the Muslim forces enough to make it so that they can't launch a naval invasion, except through storms at sea, which happens in the event phase. You will not be on board your ships when it happens. So only your ships get destroyed, and those come back the next turn, and then it might take you, 2 turns to gather your ships back together, right? That's the delay you're talking there. This other one that wipes out a ton of forces, they slaughter the garrison and set fire to the ships. You know what they don't do? They don't slaughter an expedition. So they're not going to kill the troops either. Because the troops will not be on board a ship. There's no way that they should be. If they're next to a land, they have to disembark and encamp. If they're at sea at the end of a turn, they die. I honestly do not see a way that you're going to stop the flood of the Muslims eventually getting their navy out of Egypt, maybe increasing it a little bit, and then leapfrogging over, except like storms at sea every 2 turns or something like that. So the game is, the core of the game is neither historically accurate, nor is it particularly believable. It's not particularly fun. It's got some interesting innovations in it, but I think it's just a failure, and I have the feeling that really development threw their hands up in the air about it, and that's part of the reaction of, well, this is how we got it played, kind of feeling that I got in that one thread. Yeah, this one's a definite heavy strike against the odds for me. It's it's the first real unappealing game, but as it stands, yeah, I don't see a way of you could fix it somehow, but I feel like you'd have to really redesign the game to do that in a lot of ways. All right, let's send this up. I will review it and probably say the same kind of things.